We're always warm here? There's a winter ahead? Winter Ahead by V, a song about sharing moments with someone special. We know the lyrics of the song are very clear in what they express, but did you know the music video is full of symbolism that helps us delve deeper into its story? In this video, we'll talk about them. But before we begin, remember to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and copy the video link. That would help us a lot. Now, let's get started. The lyrics of Winter Ahead convey a message of comfort, shelter, and love in the face of life's challenges. Through allegories like fire and the seasons, the song symbolizes both moments of adversity and the promise of emotional comfort and stability that comes from spending time with someone special. The tone of the song is warm, hopeful, and romantic, evoking the feeling of being accompanied even in the toughest times. Its lyrics connect the changing seasons to a metaphor for the cycle of life, reaffirming the importance of finding peace and joy in mutual companionship. But does the MV convey the same message? Let's find out. At the start of the music video, we see TAEHYUNG waking up in his bedroom. He is shown working on a sculpture or statue, placing an open book on his head and dancing around the room. Later, a woman appears, with whom he eventually chats, dances, shares moments, and spends quality time. This sequence suggests that TAEHYUNG is reliving his past, returning to a moment in his life when he seemed to be happier, accompanied by his partner or someone special. But how? Let me explain. In many contexts, statues symbolize immobility or a state of being frozen, representing the eternity of something or someone that is no longer physically present. Statues can hold strong symbolic value and are often used to reflect different ideas, as is the case here: the past, or the memory of something that no longer exists. Depicted through the contrast between the present TAEHYUNG and the TAEHYUNG from back then. We see him by the window, dancing, and, though it may seem unusual, placing the open book on his head. Books in their symbolism represent the heart. Open, they express feelings and emotions. Closed, they conceal them. This is evident when he talks to the woman, opening his heart. He conveys his happiness through the ambient colors in this sequence. When he is alone, we see cool tones, but when he is with her, warm colors dominate. This is further complemented by the scene of them at the top of a staircase. Stairs, symbolically, represent the connection between worlds. They facilitate passage from one realm to another and symbolize communication between heaven, earth, and hell. Thus, TAEHYUNG, standing with her at the top of the stairs, conveys that during those moments he felt like he was in heaven or paradise, just as he mentions in the song when he says, "We're always warm in paradise," to show us at the end of the sequence that he is aware of this when he notices the mark on the woman's neck, which turns out to be the same one as on the statue we previously saw TAEHYUNG working on. She isn't real, or well, she is, but she is no longer with him. This realization leads us to the next question. Why does he do this? Keep watching. In the following sequence, we see TAEHYUNG leaving the house, walking through the city, showing us various landscapes and observing different places, followed by scenes of him in an empty green theater, sitting in front of the stage, illuminated from behind by a light. Later, we see him facing the same light but ignoring it as he dances. And finally, the scene shifts to him returning home by car, under the rain, dressed in green, and once again seated in the audience chairs in front of the stage. This suggests that TAEHYUNG constantly avoids his present, answering our earlier question. There is something in his current reality that he dislikes and chooses not to confront. Although we don't yet know exactly what, we do know how he avoids it. He does so in two ways. The first is when we see him leave the house and go to the city. Together with the landscapes, this symbolizes a so-called progression in the present time, which, in reality, represents distancing himself from something specific, something akin to a distraction. He wants to divert his attention from what bothers him. And the second way is by returning to memories of his partner or special person from a time when he was happy. This is depicted in the scene where he dances alone on the stage of the theater, which, according to its symbolism, represents the phenomenal world, as both the theater and the world are a form of representation. In this sense, the theater is not limited to reflecting what is visible or tangible. It connects with the idea that the world itself is a kind of stage where visible realities are interpretations or manifestations of something deeper. In this case, these are TAEHYUNG's memories, akin to how a play represents a story but is not the story itself. This aligns with the symbolism of dance, seen as a rhythmic ritual, an attempt to alter a static situation through movement and shaking things up. In other words, TAEHYUNG is trying to change the reality of having to face what he's escaping from, ultimately failing in the process. In both circumstances, he ends up back where he started. In the first, he returns home, and in the second, he returns to the seat in front of the stage. However, he continues to evade what displeases him in his present. How so? In the first instance, he doesn't leave the car, avoiding contact with the rain. In the second, he ignores the light shining from behind him. These actions hint at what he is so desperately trying to avoid. According to Jung's analytical psychology, rain can symbolize emotional release and the discharge of repressed feelings, allowing new perceptions or insights to emerge. Light, or more specifically, being illuminated by a central light, psychologically represents gaining consciousness. Thus, we can conclude that what he is running from is the conscious confrontation of a situation he knows will cause him pain. Ironically, the very act of avoiding it also hurts him in its own way. This is emphasized by the presence of green, both in his clothing and in the theater's setting. Symbolically, and within this context, green is associated with death, or more specifically, decay, the loss of vitality or vigor. TAEHYUNG, as a result of this lifestyle, finds himself in a state of emotional decline. Sooner or later, he will no longer be able to avoid it and will be forced to face it. In the following sequence, we see more sculptures or statues that TAEHYUNG has been working on. Afterward, he enters a small party filled with people dressed in white, while he is also dressed in white, but wears a red jacket over it. At that moment, a woman carrying a cake with candles appears. This reflects the emotional decline of TAEHYUNG mentioned earlier. To take refuge in his unconscious mind, it is no longer enough to simply recall his partner or special person. Now, he feels the need to reinforce his memories, or his safe place, by incorporating more elements, such as people he likely knew or interacted with during the time when he was happy. However, this strategy will not work, or at least, not for long. Let me explain. The door TAEHYUNG crosses to enter this small party, in psychoanalytic terms, symbolizes the entrance or passage to the unknown, the new, or the unconscious. It is that space in his mind he considers his safe place. The color red, when paired with white, symbolizes the union of opposites, as in alchemy, where the solar and lunar principles are fused. This represents what brings him peace, his past, and the burden he is trying to escape, his present. This is reinforced by the candles on the cake, as candles symbolize an individual life as opposed to the cosmic or universal life. In the context of the MV, they embody each and every time TAEHYUNG sought refuge in his memories, making them so frequent and habitual that they have lost their power to help him ignore his present. And finally, we have the flowers, which in many cultures are associated with the brevity of life and the fleeting nature of pleasures. In this case, they represent the limited time his memories, his unconscious, can protect him from the burden of his present, his conscious mind. When we see TAEHYUNG blow out the candles, he is quickly surrounded by the same people from his memories, holding flashlights and pointing them in all directions. Shortly after, one of them shines a light directly on him, much like the theater spotlight, causing him to transition from an open field to a closed room. This illustrates the fragility of his mind in shielding him from his present, leaving him completely exposed and with no escape from what torments him, what he must confront. This brings us to the final question. What is he trying to escape from? We'll find out soon. Once TAEHYUNG confronts the center of light and begins to embrace the awareness it offers, it is revealed that what he has been trying to escape all along is himself, or rather, the version of himself he has been repressing. This was hinted at earlier when he avoided the rain while sitting in the car, do you remember? This repressed version of himself is dressed in black, with blood streaming down his face, symbolizing the internal struggle that is causing him pain. It hurts him to no longer have that special person in his life, or to relive those moments of joy and fulfillment when he felt he was in paradise. However, this version of himself not only invites him to feel and express that pain, to grieve, but also conveys that this suffering is not eternal. While blood often symbolizes struggle and pain, when paired with black, it signifies transmutation, a deep internal change and renewal of the soul or psyche. In other words, it represents purification through suffering and renewal through struggle. He cannot continue living in an emotional limbo between what brings him pleasure and what causes him pain. This is represented in the brief scene where he faces himself in a mirror, his face divided between cold and warm lighting. Completely opposite colors, just like the states of consciousness and unconsciousness he has been alternating between. He has been wearing himself down without realizing it. Then, we see a mark on his neck, in the same position as the one on the statue of his special person. This tells us that the TAEHYUNG we have seen throughout the video is just a version of himself that he has been clinging to, the version that was happy and in paradise. Finally, he begins to grieve as he should have from the start. He lets go of that memory, symbolized by the image of both of them leaving the house together, alongside the broken statues or clay figures. Ending the video with a powerful message. TAEHYUNG standing in the middle of a field of vegetation. Through its symbolism, it declares that something must die for something new to be born. And this was the analysis of Winter Ahead. Remember, if you have another perspective on the MV, feel free to share it in the comments section. Thank you so much for watching the video until the end. See you soon.